listening to Finding Your Genius Zone with Dirk Nevelle. It's not just a job. It's not just a paycheck. Or at least it doesn't have to be. With the help of experts across industries, Dirk helps you find your passion and career, as well as exposing the unknown parts of every vocation. Let's go deep. Let's find your genius zone right now. Here's Dirk Nevelle.
Hey everybody, this is Dirk, and I am on with one of my closest friends from Maryland, Craig Strent. Thanks for coming on, Craig.
Love being here, Dirky.
Craig's got a busy life right now, and he's about to leave the country for a month. You want to just kind of briefly touch on that trip to Israel?
Sure. Glad we're going right to that. I think I read a book years ago by Ted Leonsis just called The Business of Happiness. And he's gentleman owns the Washington Capitals and some other local sports teams, one of the original founders of AOL. And he talks about the importance of having, written specific things that you want to accomplish in your life and not compromising on doing those. Our mutual coach, Tim Brahim, has talked about misogis, which is the Japanese ritual of doing one big thing a year. And several years ago, I knew that my son was going to be spending a semester in Israel. My wife, Amy, and I decided to use that time to spend a month there, and rather than just be tourists, which we had done once before, actually go and live there for a month and feel what it likes to feel what it's like to actually live there. So it's been on the calendar for a number of years. I can't believe it's actually here, but for the first time since I started working I'm going to date myself now, in 1994, I'm taking off more than 2 weeks. And I'm not going to wait till retirement to start enjoying things. No time like the present. There's never going to be a great time to take off a month, but I'm doing it starting tomorrow.
Yeah, and you also just made a company move. So a lot on your plate right now, but I admire you for doing it. And I know it's going to be a life experience that you won't regret.
For sure. Really excited.
So I will say this, Craig and I are in the same industry. And I've known Craig for many years, and the group that I'm part of, or we're part of, right now, probably about 50 people. It used to be 25, 30, 35. And I will say Craig is one of my favorite people in the group. Not only just personally, I think we have a lot of similarities, but in terms of respect for what he does in his career. And, Craig is, out of all the people in this group, and I think there's many, many impressive people, Craig, in my opinion, is the most impressive. And I'm saying that quite as honestly as I can. So when it came time for these podcasts to educate my users on the life behind a career, you were one of the guys that I definitely wanted to interview first. So why don't you tell me, or the audience, a little bit about, what you do, even your title. Feel free to give a little information on the industry, and then we'll go down that road, and then I'll jump in when it's appropriate.
Yeah. In short, I sell money, right? That's what we do in the mortgage business in a lot of ways, but it's so much more than that, and I take a much more global approach to it. But I've been in the mortgage business since 1994. I started out as what's called a mortgage broker and then became a mortgage banker sometime later. I started my own company at the age of 25, just 3 years out of college. And I built that up from 2 folks to about 150 folks and sold that company at the end of 2021. Went on to be the national sales leader for another company that didn't do well in a very down market. And I've since made an additional move now where I help to run a sales group at a mortgage company that's part of a national bank. So remain in the mortgage business since about 1994, been through multiple iterations of the business and different setups as well. And I'm proud to have really grown a company from scratch to the point of sale, which, is difficult to do in any industry. But I've been in the mortgage business since pretty much 6 months out of college. And at the end of the day, the mortgage business is about, from where I sit, is about really working hand in hand with people who want to do 2 things. One, people who want to buy a home for the very first time, which is a major life event, and it's really exciting to be part of that process. And 2, people who are already in homes and want to save money on their mortgages. These are all things that are very rewarding when you can achieve them, that people get excited about. People get excited about buying second homes and buying bigger homes and all that. So it's a fun type of sale. It's very personal. So it's very rewarding in a lot of ways when it goes well. At the end of the day, though, it's still sales. And you've got to always be looking for, who am I going to help next? And you keep that pressure on. But if you do that, it can be a highly rewarding, very liberating type of lifestyle with a lot of financial freedom associated with it.
So, one of the things that's unique about you, Craig, is not only are you running a company, but you're also a producer. And maybe you wear more of the hat of running the company now, but you've been a producer for a long time. And from what I've seen, usually those are two different skill sets, but you do both really well. Are you 50-50 right now? Are you 80-20? Like, where is most of your time allocated with this new company you just joined?
Yeah, I'm like 90-10 on management leadership versus producing right now. And there's been points in my career where that swings hard the other way. It just depends what's needed in the environment. But right now, I'm working on, it's a down market in the mortgage environment. So you really put your head down. You do your best to support other people, help them be the best version of themselves, help them with their sales, train and mentor. And at this point in my career, that's really what I enjoy doing a tremendous amount. I had a lot of people help me as I was coming up, and I've done well as a result of it. And I really feel a lot of passion and excitement around seeing other people succeed at this point. So that's where I'm spending most of my time.
Okay. So what's cool about you, interviewing you, is maybe we can talk about the life of both roles because you've done them and are doing them both fairly well. So maybe initially, let's talk a little bit about producer in terms of being responsible for locking loans and building a book of business. Tell me about what that's, that lifestyle's like. Because if I'm thinking, I'm coming out of college and I'm interested in finance or real estate, and I know people in the mortgage industry, there's a lot about this life that they probably don't know, especially at your level in terms of how you get to be elite. So maybe you can walk through the audience, kind of some of the things you've done to be successful and kind of what your days look like, on a Monday, on a Sunday, at night. I mean, it's not an 8 to 5 gig for sure. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Yeah, for people thinking about, sales, or what I would really reframe these days as relationship management, there's a ramping period. There's usually a learning curve where you get basic knowledge and become an expert in your product. And the most important thing is that you have to be an expert in what it is your product is, whether it's a service or a physical item, or you're selling a copier, or where you're selling consulting services, right? You have to really be a master of that. You have to have more information, called the challenger sale. You have to have more information than the other recipient, or if they have information, you've got to make sure that you have enough to inform and educate and overcome objectives and all that stuff. So there's a lot of training involved in it. Those people that enjoy public speaking and are outgoing are often good at it. Those people who are very technically inclined, engineering, are also good at it if it's a very technical product. That could show up really well there. My regular day is a combination of meeting with people that are potentially interested in purchasing a new home, selling their other home, buying a new one, saving money on their mortgage, doing home improvements, consolidating debts, things like that. And meeting with those people that interact with those folks regularly, folks that can refer them to me. The primary group that typically comes to mind is realtors, but I work quite a bit with financial advisors, CPAs, divorce lawyers, other people that are regularly coming into contact with those interested in making adjustments to their mortgage or taking out a mortgage for the first time. That's the mortgage piece of it. On the leadership side, as I mentioned previously, I spend time managing the overall day-to-day of the company. That could be operations, that could be accounting and finance, that could be compliance. It's never a dull moment. There's a million things that come in. One of the things I love about mortgages is I was an accounting and international business major. I didn't know how to spell mortgage when I got out of college. I just sort of fell into it. And you should always pursue all opportunities. You never know where they're going to go. But what I like about mortgage as a business person, as an entrepreneur, is that it touches on real estate, insurance, accounting and finance, leadership, regulatory compliance. There's a million things that come into it. Lending, obviously, of course. So there's a wide range of things that come into it. And if you do it right, you can really make your own schedule, and you can really determine, based on how much you want to work and how smart you work versus how hard you work, what kind of compensation levels you want to have as well. So it's been super rewarding, and my day-to-day is sometimes stressful, but generally great.
So, everybody has different things about a career that they want out of a career. For me, I really cherish freedom. I've coached my kids for many years. I like to run my own schedule. I don't like to be capped financially. I like to have upside on making money. What are 2 or 3 of the things that are important to you that you're getting out of this industry, or I should say your job?
Yeah, flexibility for sure, right? I mean, you do sometimes work on an evening or a weekend, but, you're not working, all day, all the time, unless you're, really want to go hard after it and prospect and build relationships early on. But I really enjoy that piece of it, the challenge of each opportunity. And, a word that I hear from, I'll date myself again by saying from young people these days who are looking for jobs or career changes, the word I hear a lot is the word impact. I always hear that whenever I talk to young folks and I say, what do you want? Well, I want a good paying job, and I want flexibility, and I want to maybe work from home. But they always say, and I want to make an impact. Well, for me, I never used that word, but when up until now, and so I started hearing it a lot, but when I think about what I do, I make an impact all day long. When people purchase their first home, it's a wonderful feeling to see them get the keys for the first time, to move into the house. They're elated. They start decorating rooms and figure out where the dog's going to go and all these things. And it's just fun to be a part of that process. When people, typically their largest debt is their mortgage. So when you can help them refinance and save money on that mortgage, it's not just about just saving a few $100s a month. It's that money might pay for college. That money might finance a new car they need, right? That money might be going to pay off debt that they can't get out from underneath. That money might be going to finally put a deck on the house or finish the basement or something that's really going to improve their lifestyle. So it is a business where you don't just have impact. People talk about impact, they usually mean in a big sense, but this is a better impact in my mind because it's personal impact. You're helping to do something that's making somebody's life better as a result of your work. So that's where I get a lot of joy out of it. And yeah.
Yeah. So could you see yourself if you think about another career, could you have the same satisfaction in a different job or industry? Or is there something specifically about the finance industry that does it for you?
Well, I think you could have massive impact in almost any industry. I mean, I don't know who the quote is, but, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right? So no matter what you do, you can make impact based on what you do. I could certainly see myself in other industries, and if I loved what I was doing in almost any industry, I'm sure it would be impactful. So yeah, I've been fortunate that, I never thought in a million years I'd be in the mortgage business, but to me, that's just the business. It's what that I do on a daily basis that really defines, my work, my enjoyment, and sort of the impact and fulfillment I get in my work. So I think in any business, in any business or anything, whether it's nonprofit, environmental, whatever it is, if you're doing something you love, it's going to work out. So pursue, don't worry, especially if you're younger looking at your first job, pursue what you love doing first. Let that take you as far as you can. Try as hard as you can to be successful at it. Because, in anything, even if it's really hard to succeed, there's always somebody who does. And if you love it that much and you work hard at it, you will be successful over time. Sometimes things get in the way, finance, family, and you have to pivot. I get it. But if you have the benefit of just pursuing what you like, pursue it as long as you can until you hit that success rate, because eventually you'll keep failing forward and you'll get there.
Yeah, so that's an area that I want to talk about as well is, if you think about what this podcast is about, I'm really trying to educate people, make better decisions about their life work. But when you're 22, 23, I should say for myself, the voices in my head were all about money. And to be quite honest, my father's voice of what looks good. So I always gravitated towards falling into sales jobs because of the money. But, for a young adult coming out of college with a lot of voices in their head, do you have any advice on, you say do what you love, but sometimes that's hard to identify. I don't think a lot of people are kind of trained to identify and think about what comes natural for them. You have 2 boys. I think, is one out of college yet?
No, 1 more year.
So, what is your advice to someone who's like, I don't know. I really don't know. And then, the voice in my dad go get a job, just do something, and I get it. But do you have any thoughts on somebody that's just struggling and like, I don't really know what I want to do?
Yeah. Then if you're not sure what you want to do, then regardless of the compensation, pursue something that you're going to enjoy doing and love. If you chase stability and comp early in your career right out of college, you're going to fall into a trap because the comp, you're gonna move up slowly. The comp's gonna keep moving up. By the time you're 30, you're gonna be in a position where you're gonna say, I'm making this much, now I can't go back to zero. The time to do that is when you're young. When I started my first business at 25, having become a commission salesperson at 22. You come out of school, hopefully you're graduating with as little debt as possible. If you're not, hopefully you're getting to manage that and deferred in some way, but come out and take the smallest possible fixed expenses you can. Fixed expenses are the big killer when longer term. So whether you got to share an apartment, whether you got to move back home, whether you got to drive your old car or cook dinner and bring, keep your fixed overhead and ideally your variable overhead, keep that low at that age, save up your money. The sooner you pay for retirement, the sooner you can retire, right? So the moment you have access to a 401k, put as much as you're comfortable in there, right? There's a concept of financial planning called pay yourself first. Okay, so always pay yourself first. More on that later if you want to talk about that. But my answer to your question would be, if you're coming out of school or in your 20s and you're feeling rudderless, then pursue something that you will enjoy doing. And that might be waiting tables or working at the bar. And that could turn into, being the manager, being the general manager, overseeing multiple restaurants, owning your own restaurant, being a really famous entrepreneur so everything, the best person in every industry does just great. So if you love it, pursue it. If you're loving what you do, keep doing it and you will rise to the top eventually.
So do you have a thought on someone not loving what they do and what their level of success could be? Or, I mean, if your son was, say, fast forward 5 years from now in a job where he just really disliked, what would your advice be to him?
Change jobs. We only go through this life once. We're all going to look back at some point and look at what we did and see what our legacy is. And we don't want to have any regrets. We don't want to say, I can't believe I spent 40 years doing that job that I didn't like, that I was miserable in doing. Switch jobs, pursue a new career. And if you're passionate about it, you will be successful in that new role.
So in your job now, like you've had, you and I are close to age. What is your biggest surprise? Like if you have somebody that's reading a job description or talking to somebody about being a lender or owning their own mortgage brokerage shop, what is we all can read and we can all know what a job's about, but now that you've been in it for so long, what would you say the biggest, maybe there's 2 or 3, but the biggest surprise that you didn't see coming, that, you might maybe warn somebody, like, maybe somebody who wants to get into sales doesn't want to be in a sales job where they have to start over every month versus, commercial insurance or being a financial advisor.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you're like, oh man, I didn't think about this or I didn't see this coming, and I would definitely want to, let someone know who's thinking about getting into this business, this is, evident in the industry. Are there any of those things?
For sure. 2 things come to mind. I mean, my dad used to joke with me that you're only as good as your last loan, right? So you're always looking at the next one. You can mitigate that over time by building a great database, a great client following, good realtor base, good referral partner base where you're going to get a certain amount, but you've got to keep working it. You can't fall asleep at the wheel. Somebody's always ready to take your piece of it. So you've got to continue to stay on top of that. So that'd be one. And there are other industries where the sales side is better. I'll come back to that in a second. The other piece is cyclical. Like the mortgage business has a massive cyclical nature. It literally can go like this, right? And so one year you can have business coming out your ears and every single person is refinancing or buying a home. And then next year, volume could drop by 80%. So you've got to make sure that you're not living beyond your means in the years that are really good. That's when you're stocking away and saving your nuts up, right, for the future, for the winter. So you've got to be good at keeping a base level of living expenses. And then when things are great, that's when you can maybe take the bigger vacation or do the other things or, buy a new car if that's your thing or whatever. But you've got to keep your base level living within what a normalized market would look like, or you're going to find yourself in trouble. In terms of other sales jobs you talk about, there are other sales jobs that are more steady. I mean, you talked about insurance, life insurance, home insurance. These are things where you might get less money up front, but over time you build a more recurring stream of business. So every year on January 1, you wake up and as long as I do a good job servicing my clients, I'm going to get this much money. That might be better for people that are more conservative. financially, that just want to have more certainty over time. You mentioned financial advisory. I think that that's one of the best careers you can have. Financial advisors get typically paid a portion of the assets they manage. So you start out with people that are your age and young friends, and as you get older, they get older. As you build up more money, they build up more money. So you wind up going and you wind up in that business, you wind up working really hard. But as you get older, you work less hard and make significantly more, and you get to really enjoy it. So I think that's a wonderful business to pursue. And it's also super fulfilling, helping people manage their money properly and live out their dreams.
So in the industry you're in, your job, your career, is there anything you're not getting, like that you wish was part of this career that you have?
You know, the cyclical nature of things does make it sort of difficult to manage operations for sure, because, you know, when things are really busy, you have to expand and have a lot of support personnel. And then when things are really slow, you don't need all those people. So there is this essentially piece of it where, you know, sometimes you have to let people go. And that's one of the most difficult things in business. I really pride myself on taking care of people. I had a huge, and still do have a huge focus on employee experience. We've won best places to work many times over. My philosophy has always been, if I take care of my employees, they'll take care of my customers. If I make them smile, then they'll pick up the phone and smile and show up as the best versions of themselves to our customers. And so I like to do little things to reward our people. We collect lists of what they love, and when it comes time to reward them, we send them little gifts, and we do all kinds of fun events. So when things are really difficult and the market turns a lot, and things are completely out of our control, because of where interest rates are, we sometimes have to cut people. And that's definitely the darkest side of the mortgage business in my mind.
Yeah, I've seen that, and it's tough. So in terms of success, I always love the term authentic success. I would be curious how you would define that for yourself.
Yeah, I think authentic success is being in integrity, right, with what you have done. Have you built something that's built on a solid foundation? At our company, Apex, we have what we call a brick wall. And we talked about building the company brick by brick. And as we had certain achievements, we used to take these brick stickers. We would talk about the achievement publicly in front of the company. The person that was responsible would take this brick, peel it off, and put it on the wall. And we would see over time the brick wall building, and we would be able to visualize and visually see the authentic success that we had had. So I think building something that's solid foundation that has enterprise value. Eventually we sold it for enterprise value. I think, to me, that's really the authentic success, and it's multiple layers of success. It's, you know, are your customers happy, and are they coming back? Are your employees happy, and are they showing up as the best version of yourself? And then 3, are you a good business citizen? Are you a good citizen for the community? Like, I feel strongly about living and working and giving back in the communities we serve. We had something called Apex in Action, which we still have. That's our community giving program. And if you're going to serve your local communities and you expect people to buy local and start with you, then I think there's got to be a two-way street of being philanthropic and being out in the community and helping the customers that you serve, helping them with all kinds of issues. We packing school lunches for kids, food insecurity over the weekend, whether it's warm coat drives in the winter, all kinds of things like that are easy to do, that bring us together to serve the community. I think it's three-pronged approach to that authentic success model.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that. I think a lot of folks, to be honest, they don't think about personal authentic success. They think of maybe they are living success, someone else's success. But I've always thought, I've seen you from afar, and I feel like you are living it. Would you say, from a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, are you a 10, or is there some things that you're still trying to implement in your career?
No. Or
would you say you're satisfied?
There's massive room for improvement at all times. Before we joined the call, I decided I would take out to show you, Dirkie, my core values block. Yep. This is something that we had at Apex. It's got 5 different things on it. And one of them is what we call Kaizen, the Japanese principle of continuous improvement. And here it is: continuous improvement, innovation, and efficiency. And for me, I always want to be improving. I don't want to be stagnant and get run over. I'm a lifelong learner. I always want to do better. And that just does not apply to business. There's things personally that I'd rather be much better at than I am now as well. And I'm always going to be working on improving those. I think this is a journey. It's not about getting to the destination. It's about learning, being introspective, being self-aware, and just constantly getting better. And that applies to both business and personal life for me.
So if you don't mind me asking, from a business perspective, is there something that you feel like you need to work on? Because what I see is kind of like an elite person in your industry. I mean, what exactly is it that you don't think you're doing very well?
Well, I think you can always improve. I think you can always become a better leader. There's a lot of qualities to leadership, empathy, understanding, motivation. So I think that that's an area where we can always get better. I haven't been great all the time. I've had plenty of people that have worked at my company that have left my company, and there's always a reason why. And, I take responsibility if it doesn't work out. If you hire someone and then you have to fire them, that's on you. Either you didn't keep the volume up to support them, or you didn't train them right, or you did a poor job at selection. So I think, extreme ownership of that is for me. I believe the leader gets the credit, the leader takes the blame. That's how it works. And so I think in business, there's absolutely always room for massive improvement. And I learn every time somebody leaves my company. I learn from that. And I truly believe that people don't leave companies. They leave leaders. They leave managers, right? So for me, I take that personally. I take it hard, probably harder than I should each time. But it makes me get introspective, and it makes me think about what I can do better in the future.
So the other thing about success, in my opinion, is, we talk a lot about the zone of genius, doing what you're naturally born to do. My feeling with you is you're far from faking it. Like, it's very genuine. I know that you're very interested in finances. You're always reading the Wall Street Journal, and it's naturally something you want to do. I guess, do you feel like when you look around at some of your peers or people in the business, do you feel that the lack of, I'm trying to articulate this, do you see when people don't have the genuine passion and what happens because of it? Like, I feel like you have that, but you've been around a lot of people, you've managed a lot of people, you've probably competed with a lot of people. Having that passion, how important do you think that is to being successful in this industry?
I think it's uber successful. I've seen people get burnt out. They do get burned out. It's important to take breaks. It's important to stop and recharge. And by recharge, I mean, get off your email, get away from your work. Don't just take a week-long vacation and then be on your email all weekend long. That's not a recharge. Usually once you go on vacation, it takes a couple of days until you truly unwind. And at least a couple of times a year, you need to just completely unplug and recharge your battery, or else you're not going to show up at work as the best version of yourself. So I think that's just super important to do, Dirk. And so I do see people that are burnt out, and I do see people that are just slogging through. And part of that is that they're not challenged in their work. They're not constant lifelong learners. They're just trying to put money in the bank to pay the bills to get to that retirement piece. And if you find yourself in that position, it might be time to either take a big break or just do something else.
So we're kind of going to wrap this up here pretty soon, but is there anything like that you feel like you would want to say to my audience that might be, just whether it's the mortgage industry or something else, but just any advice on choosing life work? I mean, you've given advice already, but is there one more nugget or two that you would end with that you might want to say? Because I do think there's a lot of people that don't admit it that really, really struggle with choosing, that next step. And sometimes you just got to take action, which leads to something else like you did in your career. But is there anything that you haven't said that you feel like you might want to say along these lines?
Yeah, if you find that you've gone down the wrong path and then you might not be doing what you love, it's never too late to change it. It's never too late to change it. I'm reminded of a scene, I don't know if any of your listeners remember the movie Up in the Air, but George Clooney has to fire a famous guy, the guy who does the Farmers Insurance commercials. I forget that guy's name. And, he fires him and the guy's all upset with him. And he looks at his resume and he said, "When did you give up on your dream?" And the guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And he says, "Well, I see you minored in culinary arts and you've been working at this insurance company for 10 years. When did you give up on your dream?" And the guy says, "Good question," right? So that guy was in a position where he had to, because of his family and his obligations, he had to pursue something he didn't love doing, right? So try to avoid that. And if you find yourself in it, make a switch sooner rather than later, because it's never too late to make the switch. It's never too late to start again. And as I've said multiple times on this podcast, if you're doing what you love, you will find a way to be successful and make the money you need to live the lifestyle that you want. If you're pursuing excellence, doesn't mean that you love doing so. Don't be afraid of change, regardless of how old you are. Don't be afraid to make change. Be courageous.
Yeah, I love that. That's the crux of what I'm getting at is you said, follow your dream. But I would say, and I do want to hear your thought on this, is I don't think people are, they have their dream, their passions, their interests, what's innate to who they are. And then they have, I got to get a job. And I don't think those two groups are merged inside people's decisions. I just don't think they think in terms of what am I really good at? What do I love doing on a Saturday for 7 hours? I don't even think it's part of the discussion when, applying for jobs or going on interviews. I guess what I'm trying to think is like, how do we merge, what's your advice on getting younger adults to merge those things? Because I don't think they pay attention to the right things. And I think that's part of the problem.
Know that there's a job in everything, right? My younger son is passionate about roller coasters. He loves roller coaster. He drives to different places to go to roller coasters. He's taken trips around the country. He's gone on a roller coaster camp, right? And I said, and he's talking about he doesn't know what he wants to do in the world. I said, well, what about roller coasters? And he's like, what do you mean? Roller coasters isn't a job? I said, of course it is. People design the roller coaster. People work at the roller coaster company. There's somebody in the accounting department at the roller coaster company that loves roller coasters, but wasn't good enough to design them or whatever, but just wanted to be around roller coasters and people. So he's an accountant. He works at the roller coaster company. And there's somebody in sales at roller coaster that goes to the amusement parks all over the country and helps sell roller coasters. There's a million jobs related to roller coasters, whether, and he's like, well, I'm not going to be a physics major and I can't design. Okay. What are you great at? Right? Are you good at finance? Are you good at sales? Are you good at management? There's a job for you. Are you good at art? You can design them. There's a job for you in roller coasters. Let's pursue that. Well, how do you pursue that, Dad? Well, let's look up roller coaster manufacturers and see if any of them have internships. And let's start with that, right? So there's always something you can do. And if you're not sure, then do some traveling and take some odd jobs and see where that goes and see where your passion lies and get a full range of experience. Go really wide and try a lot of different things until you find something you like. And then when you find something you like, then you go deep in that vertical.
I love it. That's great. Roller coasters. Let's just say you could not do the mortgage business. Let's say it was off the table. You couldn't run your own business. Nothing similar to what you're doing now. It just, God came down and said, sorry, Craig, you can't do this. What is it you would do? Like, what is a dream job that if you had to pick and you could do a dream job totally different from what you're doing right now, what would it be?
I know it's a crazy thing to say, but I live in Washington, D.C. There's a reason I came here. I always wanted to be president of the United States, Turkey. So I would love to be in elected office. I'd love to be a person that could really have significant impact on other people's lives, help my constituents with all of their problems. Something like that would probably be something I love. I love history, so I'd love to be involved in something historical as well, whether it's teaching or anything like that. I love giving tours, as you know. I've given lots of tours around D.C., so I love being around the Washington, D.C. area and around politics, history, government, and all that kind of stuff. So I'd probably find something in that space that I was passionate about, or I would buy the New York Islanders, my favorite sports team, and I would just be more than happy to run that sports franchise as well. Those would be my top two.
I love it. The word that keeps coming up in my head is impact. I think that is something that maybe you didn't realize when you were 22, 23, but I think that's really important for you to have in your career is impact, whether it's a mortgage person or whether it's, owning a sports franchise or being a politician. But I think that's a great way. By the way, I would vote for you, Craig.
Thanks, Turkey.
I really appreciate you coming on, and I wish you luck in Israel. You're going to be there for a month, right?
I'm going to be there for a month.
Try to be present and try to enjoy it.
That's right. Check out and recharge. Thanks for having me on, pal.
Thank you.